Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr, and today is our traditional Wednesday show where, we are very prepared and we talk about all sorts of stuff with Ohio State. And this week is the biggest week of the year. The Buckeyes, Michigan, the game, Saturday at noon on Fox. Tom, it's almost here. It only comes once a year. We count down the days, and man, it's almost here, but not quite. We still got a couple of hurdles to get through. But you know what? This is as close as we've been all year.
That is how the passage of time works. Yes. So it is interesting to, on the front page of the ozone.net, we always 24/7 365 have a countdown to the Ohio State Michigan game right on the front page. So you go to it in March or April and it's 200 and something days away. It always gives you a little bit of a charge when you look at the site this week and it says 3 days and so many hours or 2 days and so many hours. So it is a reminder that time is running out. We have a lot of stuff that we should talk about and write about this week, and time is always running out. But it's always an exciting, fun week.
And adding to that excitement this week was Michigan running back Karan Higdon going out of his way, Tom, I would say, to guarantee a victory over Ohio State. And by going out of his way, just choosing to answer a question that didn't have to be answered. When a reporter in Michigan asked him if he would like to do, or if him or either, was it Zach Gentry up there with him?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
If either of them would like to guarantee a victory like Jim Harbaugh did back in 1986. And I'll assume it was Zach Gentry. Tom, you can research that and tell me if I'm wrong, because, I'm too far away from my keyboard right now, and when very lazy. So if it was Gentry, he was just like, no, and didn't say anything, just turned away from the question, and Karan Higdon was basically like, yeah, I'll do it. I got confidence in my team, and apparently once he said that, and everybody started typing, and Gentry was like, wow, a lot of people are typing right now, and that gives you an idea, like, everybody was waiting for that. And at Ohio State on Tuesday, we didn't get that. But Tom, it's like casting a fishing line out into the water, and you're hoping somebody's going to take the bite. And Karan Higdon definitely did that, and gave us what we always want this time of year, which is somebody going out on a limb and making a guarantee in this game, so that either they can be proven wrong or be proven right. Either way, we get a story out of it, and it's fun to talk about.
Exactly. Now, there are two possible ways this week goes for him now. Michigan wins, and he goes down as the Jim Harbaugh type sage who predicted the win and who becomes a great figure in Michigan history. Or he becomes the Walter Smith who came out and talked about how they wanted to get John Cooper fired, and then somehow managed to do that in one of the 2 years out of 13 that they actually did not lose to Ohio State, or did not beat Ohio State. So, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty high stakes thing for Karan Higdon. I would have to think he's been around long enough to know that was going to turn into a big thing. That should not have been a surprise. It was so, the funniest part of this, though, and by the way, it was Zach Gentry next to him. Good job with that. Today, on Tuesday, Jim Harbaugh and Karan Higdon, I'm just reading from Nick Baumgardner's Twitter account, the quote, "I didn't think much of the way the interviewer was interviewing him. What Karan was saying was, yeah, he's confident. He believes in his team, his teammates, his brothers, and his coaches. That's real. I thought the reporter was pretty silly." Like, okay, if you, I mean, the way I summed it up on Twitter was, it's someone else's fault that he said the thing that he said. Like, there are 1,000 ways to answer that question that are not, yes, I guarantee. Here's exactly what Higdon said. Basically, I think the end of the reporter's question was, Jim Harbaugh's 1986 guarantee, does Higdon feel that way this year too? And the quote was, "Yeah, I do. That's how I feel. I believe firmly in my brothers and this team and this coaching staff, and as a captain, I'll take that stand. Why not?" It's not like he got tricked into answering the question. It wasn't like this was some kind of gotcha. This is a question that has been asked of Michigan players every year since Harbaugh's been there, because of course you're going to ask it. Your coach was the one who's famous for guaranteeing a win, so of course you're going to ask his players if they're going to do the same thing. And every year, the players say, "No, we're going to make sure we play hard and we do our best and we." There's 1,000 ways to answer that question that are not yes, and that yes, I'll take that stand. Like that's not the reporter's fault. The reporter's doing his job. So, and you know what, Karan Higdon, if you are willing to stick your neck out just in search of or in service of giving us some fun stuff to write about this week, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Good job. Keep up the good work.
The people who are upset about it have framed this question like from the reporter like it's like the reporter asks it in this way. He's like, Michigan player guarantees victory, says what? And Karan Higdon's like, what? And boom, 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 Twitter, run to Twitter. Karan Higdon just guaranteed victory. And it wasn't a trick question. There was an out, and it was asked in a way that there was an out, but also like it was asked in a very tempting way to answer, and the reporter got what he wanted, and you learn from it and you move on, and you either, it's not going to impact the way he plays. He's going to want to win the game regardless, but it's always fun when somebody guarantees something. And Tuesday with the Buckeyes, nobody did that. It was very subdued, mundane day with the players. We talked to most of the captains, and like Draymond Jones was there as well, and Demetrius Knox. And you would think that, because while we're streaming this on Facebook, like the main comment we kept getting was that these guys seem pretty like low key and bored, and they should be more amped up for, this is Michigan week. They should be more amped up. But I go back to something that Urban Meyer has talked about from that he got from Lou Holtz. Like the first time Meyer, I think, played in the national championship game, he, talked to Lou Holtz about, how do you prepare that week? And one of the things he said was, you can't, you're not playing the game on Wednesday. You're not playing it on Tuesday. You're playing it on Saturday. So there's no reason to be up for it on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. You need to be up for it on Saturday. So maybe, for one, you're not going to be fired up. Nobody's fired up to talk to reporters, and two, it was a Tuesday afternoon before practice, and Tuesday practices are pretty brutal, and this is an odd week anyway. And so, you're not going to get like Randy Macho Man, Savage cutting promos in front of the Ohio State reporters. It would be great if like, Draymond Jones says, what you going to do, Karan Higdon, when Hulkamania comes for you. Tom, do you know about wrestling, or is this just me?
I know enough about wrestling. I remember wrestling from when I was a kid, when it was the Macho Man and Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake and
all right,
and
that's
Jake
enough.
the Snake
That's
Roberts.
enough. That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah. So, yes. Yes, I could. Yes, I know wrestling, but not as up to speed with your modern day wrestling. It's basically like everything else in life. I can go on and on and on about stuff from 30 years ago, but now, friends, I don't know. Let's talk about football. I don't know.
So the and I'm completely lost because Tom was actually talking wrestling, and
well, here, let me answer. Let me make a point about the players looking bored on Tuesday at interviews. Their job during those interviews is to not say anything that of any interest. You know this because that's what they always do. They don't want to, if they come out and say something like what Karan Higdon said, then that becomes a story, that becomes a distraction, that becomes something that they get in trouble for. I'm sure, based on Jim Harbaugh's reaction to what Karan Higdon said, Jim Harbaugh is not happy with what Karan Higdon said. So I don't think any Ohio State player wants to come out and say something that gets Urban Meyer ticked off at them this week. Here's how you answer this question. I'm going to read Devon Hamilton, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. He was asked about Ron Higdon's guarantee. He said, quote, "Either way, we're going to be working hard this whole week to try to win this game on Saturday. They can say whatever they want. That doesn't matter to me. Either way, we're going to be working hard. We'll go out there and try to win this game. It doesn't change anything for us. Say what you want." That is how you answer that question. Ron Higdon, of course, had the option to answer that question the way he did. It's not like you said, this was not like the FBI coming in and entrapping him into answering the question and guaranteeing a win. There's 1,000 ways to answer that question in which you are not guaranteeing a win. So now you've done it. Hope you can go out and back it up on Saturday.
And Tough Borland said something not similar, but he was asked about Ron Higdon's guarantee, and his answer is, "I'm not really worried about it." And that was the response by most of the guys. It's like, well, football still has to happen. And we've still got a lot of film to watch, and we've still got a lot of game prep to do and game planning. And while, we'll talk about it, and fans will talk about it, and coaches will get asked about it, players, they've got enough to do. And the Ohio State Sports Information Department isn't going to put some loose cannons out there right now during this week. And, I was there today or Tuesday, and there wasn't a lot said, even though each player spoke for, 10, 12 minutes. There wasn't, it was some vanilla, some bland stuff, but, there's always some good stuff when it's Michigan week, when players talk about the rivalry and what it means. But there was nothing like you have to run to Twitter to let people know, like, oh, this one's going to blow up. There was nothing really viral today. And so Ohio State would consider it a successful day on Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. No one is rushing out to tweet out that Ohio State just has to have a good week of practice and focus and come in prepared, and that the toughest team will win on Saturday. That if you come out of practice, then all the Ohio State sports information people and all of the Ohio State coaching staff are happy. If we walk out of interviews and it's like, that wasn't much. That was not no. That wasn't there. I don't remember. I could not tell you one phrase that anyone specifically said that was particularly memorable. And, like you said, it's fine. Like there's good stuff. There were a lot of people who talked about the history of the rivalry and when they first learned about the significance of the rivalry and how much it meant to them, like the Ohio kids growing up. There's a lot of stuff like that, but that's not anything that's going to really stir the pot. And so good job by the Ohio State Sports Information Department flogging people into not saying anything interesting today.
I imagine after successful rivalry week interview days where nobody says anything controversial, like SIDs just high five each other and yeah, we made it. No fires to put out.
Somewhere there is a wall where Jerry and Mike and the rest of their staff have Buckeye leaves every time there's a low key dull interview session. Stick another leaf on the wall. We earned it. Jerry has a Buckeye leaf on his laptop, so maybe that is what that's from.
There you go. One of the questions I was asking a couple of the Buckeye defenders on Tuesday was, do they need to play their best game of the year to beat Michigan? And I liked Devon Hamilton's answer. He said it's got to be damn near close because they're a really good team. Tough Borland, on the other hand, said, well, we have to play our best to win every game. And I was like, have you played your best this year?
You won against Maryland. I hope that wasn't your best.
And
if that was your best, I have bad news, friends.
Right. And so he said, well, we haven't played our best game yet, and kind of just moved on. But they have to play their best game defensively, and that doesn't mean a perfect game. That just means a sound, fundamental game where maybe they stay with their base defense because that's what is safest. And really, Tom, I think a safe defense would be a welcome thing. Now, yeah, you still need to create turnovers. That would help, but Shea Patterson will sometimes give you turnovers. So I don't know that you have to force things too much. I think it's more important for them to be sound defensively than trying to make something happen. Because when they try to make something happen, something always happens. and it's not always good for the Buckeyes. So base, I would think, would be just better to be safer than sorry, you know?
Yeah, I think if Ohio State does not give up a 50-plus yard touchdown on Saturday, that probably bumps them over a 50-50 chance of winning the game. I think. I mean, Michigan. If you look at the Indiana game, Michigan. I mean, you think as an Ohio State fan, you probably think of the Buckeyes as having trouble converting in the red zone. Michigan has not been great in the red zone this year either. So if you can just keep Michigan from having those big touchdown plays, make them march down the field, and go ahead and have a 9-play, 70-yard drive. If you kick a field goal, you don't win this game with field goals generally. This is not going to be a 2007 14-3 kind of game. This is going to be a game that you're going to have to at least get into the 20s to win, and it wouldn't shock me if someone ended up in the 30s. So I think that if you can just keep Michigan from having big, long touchdowns, make them march up and down the field, let them kick field goals, as often as not. If they're kicking field goals in half of their red zone possessions or more, that's probably a pretty good sign for Ohio State.
We talked a couple of shows ago about Ohio State not relying on field position as much as they have, and when they're inside the 40, continue to try to go for it if it's reasonable. I go back and forth on this because it's if you can tell me they're going to pin somebody inside the 5, that's generally Terry McLaurin, I believe, a few weeks ago said after he had all of his great plays on the punt, downing the punt, said it's you've got like a 2% chance of scoring if the punt is down inside the 5, or if an offensive drive starts inside the 5, that offense has a 2% chance of scoring a touchdown. And so that
it was 3%. The number was 3%. Yep.
Thank you, Tom, for that 1% correction. This is because I corrected you.
It's a 50% increase, so it's pretty significant. But go on.
All right, I will. But that's where I'm kind of torn. We said a couple weeks ago they need to go for it on 4th down because they need as many points as they can get. But if the Michigan offense is looking like it did last week, now you sort of have to balance things. And if it's 4th and 8 or 4th and 9, you punt. If it's 4th and 6, then maybe you go for it. I know how you feel about it, but is there any part of you that is okay with punting from like the 35 to the 40 if Michigan's offense is struggling?
If Michigan's offense is struggling and and the defense really looks like they are have really come to play and are not doing all of the things that they've been doing all season, then I mean, sure, if it's 4th and 10 and you're at the 40-yard line, like that's defensible. It's much more of an issue when they're punting on 4th and 4 from the 36 or something like that. I mean, it's just at some point you have to just trust your offense to get the first down, and you have to call plays commensurate with your strategy there. You can't. I think that they have a number of occasions, on 3rd and 8, they'll run the ball on 3rd down and pick up 3 yards or 4 yards, and then it's 4th and 4, and then they'll punt it. Like, well, if you were not gonna go for it on 4th and short, why are you running the ball on 3rd down? Like, if you are not going to go for it on 4th and short, throw the ball past the sticks. I mean, statistically, it is always the right play to go for it. Just pure statistical numbers basis, it is always the right play to go for it on the plus side of the 50 on anything less than something like 4th and 8 or 4th and 10. Like, always 100% of the time, your expected point value is better if you go for it. And with an offense as good as this Ohio State offense, that's probably even more true. And with a defense as weak as this Ohio State defense has been all year, that extra 25-ish yards of field position is not necessarily that big. So I think that, I mean, this has been one of my little hobby horses to ride all season. They should be going for it way, way, way more than they do. And it has worked out the last few weeks for them pretty well because they've had a historically unprecedented number of punts killed inside the 10 or inside the 5. And, it's great if it works, but as soon as one or two of those bounces into the end zone, then you've really, really hurt yourself in terms of your expected outcome from having a ball at that spot on the field.
And if Michigan's defense or offense is struggling and the Ohio State offense is playing well, then what's the problem with letting them start at the 38-yard line if they're only going to get 15 or 20 yards and then have to punt the ball anyway? Having the confidence in the offense is another reason to go for it, and I think they should have confidence in the offense right now. The running game is as good as it's been this season, and they have played poor run defenses earlier in the year and not been able to run on them. They were able to run on Maryland, and say what you want about Maryland. The fact that they are able to do something that they should do is a good sign. In a similar way that then this is a terrible example. The Ohio State defense doing what they should have done against Michigan State was a good sign. Now, we can discuss on whether or not that really, was a good sign or it was just, indigestion. But if you are playing as well as you've played all year, rely on those players more in this game. But when you're talking about you should go for it more, coaches, like especially Urban, he could go for it, and he's an aggressive coach going for it. He says he's gotten less aggressive because Drew Chrisman is so good at what he does. But he could go for it, 4 or 5 times in a row and get it. But it's the one that they don't get that always haunts them, and that's the one that always worries them. They're so afraid of losing the game based on one of those fourth downs. They'll find other ways to win it. They just don't want to lose it on one of those fourth downs. And that's why the old school coaches, and football is going to be really, really interesting, I think, in like 15 years when, and I've said this on Twitter, and it may sound like a joke, but it's totally not, when you've got a generation of football coaches who grew up playing football video games. And this is how they've always done football. And you're seeing it some in the NFL where you're doing unorthodox things to create successful plays. And I'll still go back, the Urban Meyer's ability, time management is not great. It would be better if he had played video games growing up. I'm just gonna say if he had Madden back in his day, if he had NCAA football back in his day, because our generation and everybody before us knows how to manage the end of half stuff because you've got to score a touchdown because that's what you're supposed to do, and it doesn't matter if you're at your own 3-yard line, you're going to be aggressive. The offense right now with Dwayne Haskins and Michigan's defense right now, which did not look great against Indiana. They gave up some plays, and tomorrow's show is going to be mostly Michigan fan concerns that they've sent to us. We solicited some of what worries them about this game, and a lot of it rolls right into what Ohio State does with their skilled players, the inside receivers over the middle. But I also think, Tom, if Ohio State is able to run between the tackles, that opens everything else up. And Michigan fans are kind of concerned that they're getting a little soft right now.
And I think they're right to think that is an area of concern, because if you go back to 2015, that was a year that I think Michigan fans were feeling reasonably confident going into that game. I don't remember what the spread was, but it wasn't huge, because that was Ohio State coming off of that awful, awful, awful Michigan State game. And then Ohio State went up to Ann Arbor, and it was like, oh, this is it. Jim Harbaugh's going to do it first year. And then they just got absolutely beaten by a sack of doorknobs for 60 minutes because their defensive line, the middle of their defensive line, couldn't hold up. And Ohio State could just pound, and just, I don't remember how many yards rushing they ended up with. I think it was 330 or 350 or something like that. I know that Ezekiel Elliott, I think, was over 200 that game, and JT Barrett was over 100. So, I mean, that is there are a few ways that Ohio State could win this game, and if you can get a J.K. Dobbins 150, 200-yard game again like you got against Maryland, that is certainly one of them. I don't anticipate that that's going to be how this plays out on Saturday, but if they can establish the run, pound up the middle, that forces Michigan to adjust their defense and opens up some other things that Ohio State would probably, has been able to do a little more consistently. You get Paris Campbell open out in the flat somewhere. You get, someone, maybe Terry McLaurin running a 9 route like you saw against Maryland. I mean, it opens up some of that other stuff, and then they're vulnerable in a couple areas, and that's when you can really see the Ohio State offense play up to its potential. But that's all predicated off of being able to run the ball, and I'm sure Michigan fans are not feeling great about their defensive line with, Rashawn Gary not 100%, Chase Winovich sort of up in the air for Saturday, and, the middle of the line being a little bit of a question mark. But I think if you asked Ohio State fans, they're not feeling particularly confident about the middle of their offensive line either, or either the middle of their offensive line or the edges of their offensive line. Other than the middle and the ends, it's looking pretty good on the offensive line right now, I think would be the consensus of Buckeye fans right now.
Yes, you got to feel pretty good about the offensive line that is not playing.
Other than all of it, it's looking pretty good.
So Indiana rushed for 190 yards against Michigan this past week. Rutgers rushed for 193 yards against them, and granted, I think 80 of that was one run, but Ohio State would take that.
If you've watched Ohio State games this year, you know that long runs count too.
Tis true.
If you've watched Ohio State play defense, you know.
Wisconsin rushed for 183 yards against them. Maryland rushed for 147 yards, and if you are giving up 147 yards rushing to Maryland, your defense is trash, all right?
I can't. When do you think? I haven't looked up. I can't remember the last time Maryland had that many rushing yards, or say twice that many. I'd have to look it up. I can't remember. Do you think that's ever happened? I'm not sure.
It does. It sounds very unlikely. So let's just leave it at that.
I'll start searching with the first year they started playing football and work my way forwards.
I'll do a search on Alta Vista and see what we can find. Michigan's defense is, I think they're like 14th in the nation in rushing, but it's their pass defense, which really, that's made them number one, or wherever they are in total defense. They're number one in pass defense. They've had, 5 games this year where they've given up under 100 yards passing, which is pretty remarkable, except, that's Nebraska with an injured freshman quarterback. That's Western Michigan. That's Maryland and Michigan State and Rutgers. Those are 5, at that time, pretty terrible passing offenses. Ohio State's better than that, at least by 50 yards. So when you've got the Ohio State passing game, which will be better than that, but that doesn't mean that everything's going to be golden. But it should open up other aspects of the offense. And we say it all the time, but you mentioned the Ohio State offensive line. We talked about the running game and the running game. But if this Michigan defense is not great against the run, and Ohio State can just run all right, but they can protect Dwayne Haskins and they can throw just all right, being all right in both running and passing should be enough to win this game. But the wild card is the Ohio State defense, and we're talking every single day this week about this or that and this and that. What do you think is more important to Ohio State's chances? Is it the Ohio State offensive line playing well, or is it the Ohio State defense playing well? For me, it's defensively. As long as they don't do what they've done, don't do what Donnie Don't does. If the defense is good, I think the offense will be good enough. Where are you?
Yeah, that's probably, if you could pick one, you'd probably pick the defense, just because the defense has been so bad in so many areas that if they play just pretty well, that would be such a huge step forward that this team's going to look completely different than it has. I don't think that they can survive a terrible game from either the defense or the offensive line. They both have to be at least okay, a little below average. Like a little below average from just one of them and pretty good from the other one might be enough to win the game. You cannot have the absolutely nightmarish day from either one of them. Because I mean you went into the defense a little bit. Let's talk about the offensive line a little bit. If they can't run the ball at all and they get set up in second and long, third and long all the time, and they get very predictable and one-dimensional on offense, Michigan is a defense that loves to blitz. The offensive line has not looked great, has not done a great and consistent job of protecting Dwayne Haskins this year, and Dwayne Haskins has not always performed particularly well under pressure this year. So that's when you see if they're getting off schedule, you're in second and 9, you're in third and 7 kind of situations, and you get one-dimensional. Michigan can blitz you. Michigan can, speed up that clock in Haskins' head, make him make quick decisions. If receivers aren't getting open, you start forcing the ball. That's when you get those pick sixes. That's when you get quick possessions, quick 3-and-outs. That's the kind of stuff that Ohio State can't afford. So they cannot afford a bad game from either the defense or the offensive line. But if it's just okay from both, that's probably not. That might be enough to win. Just okay from both. They don't need to be amazing on defense. They just need to not be terrible. They don't need to be a 400-yard rushing game on the offensive line, but they have to be able to run the ball.
Well, and it's always about one side of the ball or the other. You can't have that. They can't lose the game for you. And because Ohio State is so talented, the defense isn't losing games for them. But if with the talent being equal or more equal this week, if the defense just doesn't lose the game, that gives the Buckeyes a fair chance to win the game. And obviously, these are totally hypotheticals because Ohio State is, I think they are now 4.5-point underdog. So talking about them winning this game, rainbows and unicorns. We're just, I like to watch Bigfoot shows. I like to talk about Ohio State, possibly winning this game. It's all make believe. Nobody cares. Don't judge us. I'm done. I have nothing else after that. Just don't judge us. And crazier things have happened. Maybe.
Name one.
I can't. The Ohio State defense has been hearing all week, all season long about how bad they are. Now, against Maryland, and this was a piece that we ran from regarding some statistics that 49 plays that Maryland ran netted 41 yards. The other 13 or 14 plays, however, netted like 494 yards. So on 80% of the plays, the Ohio State defense was outstanding. Those 20%, however, they were terrible. And those 13 to 14 plays were all explosive plays, all over 15 yards. The possibilities are there for this defense to be very, very good. But the curve, they need the curve to start at like the 80%. Michigan's offense lends itself better to Ohio State's defense than some other offenses. And that's what some of the players were saying on Tuesday. Devon Hamilton enjoys this kind of game where there is going to be some running between the tackles and he doesn't necessarily have to go chasing people. But I'm wondering what Michigan is going to do on offense because we're seeing it, and I mentioned soliciting some questions from Michigan fans, and we'll get to those in the next show, but there are a lot of Michigan fans who are worried that Jim Harbaugh is going to be stubborn offensively like he was earlier in the season. Once he decided to let Shea Patterson be more of the offense, things have flourished. But this game for coaches has a way of either, loosening them up like Jim Tressel which is a crazy thing to say, or tightening them up like John Cooper. And so I'm wondering where these two coaches fall on that poll. The way Urban Meyer has been the last few weeks, this whole season, I guess, with his reactions, I don't know how much confidence inducing his antics, to call them antics, whatever, like his mannerisms, I don't know how much confidence that gives his team compared to when, no matter what was happening, Jim Tressel was just like looking at his play sheet, and good, bad, indifferent, he was always the same. The way the Fox camera, the ABC cameras were all over Urban on Monday, I assume, or on Saturday, I assume Fox is going to do the same thing this week. But do you think it would help his team if he was more stoic on Saturday on the sidelines?
I think at this point, they just know that that's what he does. And I don't know that necessarily, how he looks on the sidelines and how he acts on the sidelines is not nearly as much of a difference as if he changes how he's calling plays or how he's making decisions in this game. I mean, if he's got his hands on his knees on the sidelines on Saturday, I don't think players are even noticing that. That's something that the broadcast has made a big deal out of, but I don't think that's been a huge change throughout the year where the players are just all of a sudden going to go, oh my gosh, what's going on with Coach? That's just, if he starts calling plays super conservatively or making super conservative decisions, that's what I think could hurt them. If they are, like we said, punting on 4th and 3 at the Michigan 36, that will hurt them. If they get the ball back with, 50 seconds left to go in the first half and 2 timeouts at their own 30-yard line and decide to kneel on the ball, that will hurt them. You have to take your chances. You cannot just completely sit back and just hope everything works out. That's playing very conservatively was one of the hallmarks of the John Cooper era at Ohio State during this game. And there was always the meme that he just looked like a deer in headlights on the sidelines during this game, which was probably somewhat true, but probably also sort of assigned to him because people knew that he was tight for this game. And I don't know if he looked different on the sidelines during this game necessarily, but he coached differently on the sidelines during this game. And I think that's what you would have to worry about from Urban Meyer on Saturday. Not what he looks like or what he's acting like, but what he's doing when they get on the headset and said, okay, Urban, what do you want to do here?
The coach as the example of the team, I agree. It can be overblown because you see the players, they're in their huddles. They're not, contrary to popular belief, they don't necessarily watch the games on TV during the games. They're watching the field or they're, with their coaches. And we don't necessarily see it either up in the press box. We're not looking at the TV. We're looking down at the field. But it has gotten pretty comical with all of the, not comical, but noteworthy. I don't know, just the amount of attention that Meyer is now receiving on the sidelines. But that's also a product of Ohio State, where the Buckeyes move the needle, and it doesn't matter what needle that is or what the topic is. You put Ohio State, you put Urban Meyer, you put Buckeyes, and it gets people's attention. And I wonder, a couple of weeks ago, Urban Meyer was asked during a Monday press conference if he has to pay attention to his mannerisms, and he was like, "I never even thought about it." I believe that was his answer. Like, no, I don't think about that. Which is, I think, fine. Be who you are on the sidelines. But I wonder now, because I'm sure he's aware of the Urban cam. Back when wasn't there a khaki cam for Jim Harbaugh? when he was going crazy on
for
the
his first game against Utah. Yeah.
So you wonder, is he thinking about that? But once the game starts, you're not thinking about anything else, and he's not going to put his hands on his knees and talk to people in his headset, look like he's distressed or whatever. I mean, that's not new. The attention is new, and the health situation is out in the public now, so people are doing their own math. It may be correct, it may not be, but I prefer to watch what's going on the field. I don't know. Am I crazy, Tom?
I mean, I'm obviously up in the press box with you during these games, and really, honestly, was not aware during the game, particularly of how many times they were showing Meyer on the sideline. So that really wasn't a thing to me at all until after the game, when people were talking about it on Twitter a little bit. But until I went back and rewatched the game, I didn't really particularly notice it. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit of it's probably a little bit overblown, and your mileage may vary on what exactly it means when he's hunched over, hands on knees, and all that. This is not the first time he's done that, and I'd go back to the Michigan State game, and everyone has talked all year about how stressed he has looked in post-game press conferences, and how stressed out he's looked on the Monday press conferences after those games on Saturday. And they go up to Michigan State. They beat Michigan State comfortably. It's a good road win. And he's happy in the post-game press conference. And on that following Monday press conference, he's happy and relaxed and joking around with reporters. And so I think he's like a lot of coaches. When he does not respond well to stress and tight situations and losing. And go back and watch the Amazon series with Michigan last year. Tell me how much fun it looked like Jim Harbaugh was having when he was at home, and his wife's like, yeah, he just doesn't talk for like 48 hours after a loss. Like, okay, yeah, sure, that's healthy. All right, that is a normal human being response to a loss. Like, I think that's probably a little more widespread than people might think, but they're, it's getting probably a lot more attention because of the narrative surrounding Meyer this year, with his health, with his being suspended, and speculation about his future at Ohio State. And if you're looking for something, you can find it there for sure. But how much does it really mean? Your mileage may vary.
And you mentioned his future at Ohio State, and there are rumors flying all over the place right now that this is going to be his last season, and I'm only acknowledging that stuff is out there, so you're wondering why we're not talking about it. There's really no reason to, I guess, participate in that sort of stuff just yet, because it's, there are other things going on, and that's all rumor. And till I'm just not comfortable speculating on stuff like that right now. It's not really part of what we do on the Ohio State football beat, in terms of just talking about crazy rumors, or maybe not crazy, but we don't really work in rumors like that. I just wanted to make mention of it so that you're not wondering, why aren't we talking about it? This is what we want to know. And is this Urban Meyer's last year? As we meant, it could be any coach's last year at any point. This is a stressful job, and they make enough money that they've got enough money to walk away from. So we'll know more when we know more. And right now, you've got Michigan week to worry about. You've got Michigan on the schedule. That should be enough. When you're thinking about other things during Michigan week, I feel like you're not focused, and I feel like you need to get focused. And if it's your job that is causing you to lose focus, if it is your family that caused you to lose focus, move to the garage, quit your job. If it's your dog, your cat, stop with that. You shouldn't have pets anyways. PETA says it's, wrong. You need to get your mind right. This is Michigan. It's Michigan week. For Michigan fans, it's Ohio State week. It's the week where, it's the worst week of the year for you, but this could be a good week. It doesn't always have to be terrible. Your Thanksgivings don't always have to be miserable, and they don't have to end with you crying into pumpkin pie and, your family saying it'll be all right, knowing that it won't be all right. This this year could be okay for you. For Ohio State fans, you might end up being reminded of what the sting of a loss in this game feels like. And maybe that's what will bring you back into the fold. Maybe that's what will get your game face correct. Maybe that will fix your mindset. Because if you're worried about your coach right now, who cares? This is Michigan, man. You better get ready. If you are not ready on Saturday and you are the cause of an Ohio State loss, you only have yourself to blame. And if it is your fault, excommunicate from the state. You got to go live somewhere else. Your family doesn't want you around. Your friends sure as hell don't want you around. And all because you're worried about something that you can't control. Whereas this is Michigan. You can control this. Get right.
It's Michigan week. Don't blow this for us, guys. Come on. Do we want to do some user or listener questions? I can start working from the bottom of the list if you want.
Do we have any?
I'm just going back to the mentions on your tweet this week. You had one from Eric Bronstein at eBronstein. We talked about this a little bit. Do you think the Fox broadcast camera will be glued to Urban as much as ABC was?
Oh man, yes.
I mean, I think you're gonna see it, but there's so much else going on in this game. Like the Maryland game is like there's not a particularly compelling story on the other sideline. There's a lot to talk about this week, so you're gonna see it, but I don't think you're gonna see it as much as you did last week, probably.
What I could see is, how Fox has these long commercials. What if they do it like a split screen of Urban and commercials? But really, they should have both coaches on there, because at any point, either coach could give you something that you'll want to see.
I have enjoyed the Michigan fans this week talking about how Urban is just out of control and, throwing headsets and looks so angry on the sideline. It's like, you know who coaches your football program, right? He's not like Mr. Decorum on the sidelines. You know this? Yes? Okay. Next one, Tyler Shoemaker at Buckeye Tie 23. Better potential bowl game if Ohio State doesn't make the playoff, UCF or Washington State?
Well, we've talked about it would be cool to see play Washington State in the Rose Bowl. One, you get to talk to Mike Leach. Two, you get to be out at the Rose Bowl and cover that. UCF, there's no good can come of it from Ohio State. You beat UCF, whoop-de-doo. You're supposed to. You lose to them. Now you've just dropped another notch lower. Losing to Washington State, people understand that. Like, that's a crazy team. Stuff like that can happen. But, Tom, there's no good that can come from playing UCF.
No. One of two things happens if you play UCF. The first is you beat them, and then it's like when Wisconsin beat Western Michigan in the Cotton Bowl a couple of years ago, and it's like, oh, wow, congratulations, you beat a MAC team. Good job. And if you don't, then you're like Auburn, who lost to UCF last year, and then you're the team that lost to the AAC team. And, I mean, if you're an Ohio State fan of a certain age, you remember the Liberty Bowl against Air Force in 1990. That goes down in history as one of the most embarrassing losses in Ohio State history, because they didn't really want to be there. They weren't particularly motivated, and Air Force was super motivated and showed up and just kicked their butts for 60 minutes. So, and yes, and if the choice is, do Gerd and I spend New Year's at the Peach Bowl or at the Rose Bowl? This isn't a hard choice. Give me the Rose Bowl sunset, the Mike Leach press conferences, and a potentially exciting shootout Rose Bowl. Yep, sign me up for that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I will admit that at the Clemson Fiesta Bowl and the hospitality lounge, there were some Chick-fil-A nuggets there. And I enjoyed a plate full of chicken nuggets and, plenty of ice cold beer, and that wasn't so bad. So I assume that's how, I assume all they feed you at the Peach Bowl is just Chick-fil-A, which would get tiresome, but also
not just peaches.
Not just peaches. The hospitality suites are just they're tremendous. The only advice I would give you is the mistake that I made last year. You drink too much on the first night, and you can't take advantage of all of the free beer the rest of the nights. A rookie mistake on my part, even though I wasn't a rookie.
See, this is me being, looking at this like a fool through the prism of football and experiences and stories that we would be able to write, and not looking at it from the perspective of the hospitality lounge. So that's my mistake.
Now who's being the rookie?
All right, next one from Nathan, which is at GNilly97. Why is Oklahoma given a pass for their defense while Ohio State is downgraded for theirs?
The committee just doesn't like Ohio State, and they don't like that loss to Purdue, and they don't like the loss to Iowa last year because now they know that that wasn't a fluke and that at any point the Buckeye defense is going to give up 50 points because they've done that essentially twice this year. They've given up 50 points on average to Purdue and Maryland. And at this point, talking about playoffs and the committee being biased against Ohio State, the committee is biased against defenses that give up 50 points 3 times in a year, in a calendar year, basically. Oklahoma, they do get a pass for this, and I don't know, Tom, is it because they are prettier to watch on offense, or because they're in the Big 12, so it's understood that you're going to give up points? I mean, every year they give up chunks and chunks of points, and it doesn't matter. You give up 40 at home to Kansas, and it's fine, and you give up, who knows what West Virginia is going to do to them, and maybe that'll take care of the conversation. But they do give a pass to Oklahoma, but Ohio State is giving up 50 points to teams that are scoring like 3 and 10 against other teams, and it's hard to ignore that.
Well, that's hard to ignore. But I mean, Oklahoma this year, I'm just going to run down their points allowed. Florida Atlantic 14, UCLA 21, Iowa State 27, Army 21, Baylor 33, Texas 48, TCU 27, Kansas State 14, Texas Tech 46, Oklahoma State 47, Kansas 40. So, I mean, they're getting torched just as big as Ohio State is, if not more. But, like you said, there's sort of an expectation that that's just how things are in the Big 12. And the other thing is, when Oklahoma lost a game, they lost to a ranked team, Texas, and they lost by 3 points, 48-45. They did not lose. If Oklahoma had lost, I'm just looking quickly at who the closest analog to Purdue would be. If they had gone to Texas Tech and they had lost 49-20 to Texas Tech instead of by 3 points to Texas, if they'd lost by 49-20 to Texas Tech, guess what? They're not wherever they are in the playoff rankings right now. They drop significantly from there. You can lose a crazy shootout and win a whole bunch of other crazy shootouts, and that doesn't necessarily preclude you from making the playoff. You can lose one huge blowout loss like Ohio State does if you then come back out and completely kick people's butts. But you can't lose a blowout loss and then also look like crap in a bunch of your wins. You have to pick one. And Ohio State made their choice very early this year. They chose the blowout loss, and then they haven't held up the other end of the bargain, which is then you go out and you play Indiana and Minnesota and Maryland, and you beat them by 900 points. Like, that's what you're supposed to do, and they haven't done that. So that's the reason why.
Yeah, last year the second loss was to Iowa. This year the second loss is a 52-51 win at Maryland.
Yeah, and again, you say Oklahoma's getting a pass. Oklahoma, I did not watch the playoff rankings on Tuesday, but I assume that Oklahoma is still not in the top 4. So they're a one-loss team that's on the verge of winning their conference, and they're not in the top 4. So they're not completely getting a pass there either. Next one from at GNilly97 again. How much does Gene Smith on the committee hurt OSU the last 2 years? Wouldn't it be better to have a Big Ten voice in the committee room when the Buckeyes are being discussed? For example, if the Illinois or Rutgers AD was on the committee instead.
Well, first of all, you need people who understand what good football is. So Illinois or Rutgers, no. No, you definitely wouldn't want them out there. They would put anybody in the playoffs because they they scored a touchdown. They must be good. Or, they scored an interception. They must be number 1 in the nation. So no, not Illinois or Rutgers. But I heard an interview with Gene Smith last week with Matt McCoy on 105.7 in Columbus. And he was asked this very question, does it hurt Ohio State to have you on the committee? And he said, no. I don't know that that's true because they're, when they talk about Ohio State, he leaves the room. So there's nobody to, you say there's nobody to go to bat for Ohio State, but could be others in there, and Gene Smith wouldn't be able to do that anyway. So I don't know that he has to remain neutral anyways, in that he couldn't go to bat for Ohio State, and that doesn't mean anybody else. It's not like he's replacing somebody who would go to bat for Ohio State, I guess is the best way to say it. So for him to be doing harm to Ohio State's chances, he would have to be replacing somebody who would be more likely to want Ohio State in the playoffs. So I don't know that he helps them, and I don't know that he hurts them. It feels like if you're not helping them, though, that you're kind of hurting them.
Well, I'm just going to go back to the point that Nathan was the person who asked each of the last two questions. The last question was why Oklahoma was getting a pass and Ohio State wasn't. The only other team that's in the playoff conversation right now that has an AD on the playoff committee is, drumroll please, Joe Castiglione from Oklahoma. So this is not hurting Oklahoma. So therefore, it probably is not hurting Ohio State either. If Oklahoma is significantly ahead of Ohio State with, a similar-ish resume, then it's not hurting them. So it's probably not. That's probably not the reason that it's hurting Ohio State. Next one from Dave Turns at MGoBlueDave. I don't know if he's an Ohio State fan. Might not be. How do you see the Ohio State slot receivers matching up with Michigan safeties? It's been a problem for Michigan playing man coverage.
This is where Ohio State should be able to have some success. Michigan safeties are not great in pass coverage. They rely on a very talented pass rush from blitzes and things like that to make them better and to allow them to not have to play pass defense so long, and they don't have to be perfect. If they're playing man, and it's going to be tough for them to keep up with the mesh routes and the linebackers the same way. I worry if Ohio State is on Ohio State's behalf, I would worry like those mesh routes, linebackers dropping back, or maybe some zone blitzes where a defensive end drops back and into pass coverage and Dwayne Haskins doesn't see them. But I still, and I've said it, I think I've said it since about 2006, you have to attack the Michigan safeties deep as well. And yes, the over-the-middle stuff is fine, and that's going to move some chains. But if you really want to go after them, you can set it up to where you are sending Paris Campbell deep or KJ Hill deep on safeties that are not great in pass coverage. And they've also been playing, Josh Metellus, I think, has had some injury issues, and Brad Hawkins has played a little bit, and he's their third safety for a reason. So those guys can be attacked. It's just like, how do you get to them? It's like you're playing a video game that level is really hard, but the final boss is kind of easy. The safeties are like the final boss, but you just can't get through the level because it's so hard. So I think to get past that level, you take a warp, you throw deep, and as long as you can pass block and attack those guys all over the field, they'll make some plays here and there because that's what it's a talented pass defense. The number one pass defense in the nation. But those guys, to me, and those, I've said it all season long, attack those guys because that's the softest part of the defense, and that's not to say it's soft. It's just we're talking relative terms here. Those are the guys that I would attack.
Well, and the statistics bear you out there because success rate, which is kind of the down-to-down, move the chains, Michigan's defense is third in the country. Against in isolated points per play, which is kind of explosive plays, they're 31st. Now, 31st from third sounds like it's really terrible. That's 31st is still pretty good compared to Ohio State, which is 123rd in explosive plays, but it's still as far as weaknesses on the Michigan defense go, that's it. But the key is exactly what you said. Can they pass block long enough to let Dwayne Haskins get that drop let the receivers get out there, run those longer routes. You're going to have to hold it for a few seconds. This is not a quick zip, get it out. You've got to hold your pass blocks well. You got to pick up the blitzers. So that's going to be the key there, because there is an opportunity there, but it's going to be on the offensive line to actually allow them to get that opportunity to be able to make the most of it. Last one from our buddy Jeff Svoboda at Jeff Svoboda. Would you rather your shirts be always 2 sizes too big or 1 size too small? This is, to me, the easiest question in the world, but I don't know if you have an opinion on this one.
Oh, 2 sizes too big is much, because you can live in that. I mean, 1 size too small, you're like, it's always pulling at you. It's always tugging you, no matter which way you move. Now you get, and granted, 2 sizes too big, that's not going to be the best thing, but it's, if the Jeff Svoboda, the Toledo Blade sports editor, very prestigious person and position, asking a very serious question, for me, it's 2 sizes too big. Where are you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I don't, this isn't even a question to me. If you've ever had a shirt that, you ran it through the dryer or something, and it was like, you put it on, it was like, this isn't right. This is just, it's riding up, or it's a little bunchy or tighter on the shoulders. You have to keep tugging the sleeves down. Like, no, that's not. I can always roll my sleeves up, or tuck my shirt in.
Roll your sleeves up. You put your pack of smokes in there.
Do I have to join a motorcycle gang? Oh, maybe I will go with the 1 size too small if I have to join a motorcycle gang.
But the 1 size too small, yeah, it's like being short sheeted, on your torso. Are we done then? Is that it?
That's it. I think that's done, unless you want to read the questions with people slagging you for not writing Michigan Monday as of Tuesday afternoon. I mean, in fairness, you didn't say which Monday you'd read the thing, so.
That's a very good point. And the Monday in Michigan Monday doesn't refer to a day. People don't know that. That's a very little known fact.
It's just the spirit of Monday. The spirit of Monday is always within all of us. So really, live every day like it's Monday, really, I think, is the best advice we can give to you.
Man, we should end on that note. So let's end on that note. I want to thank everybody for listening to today's podcast. Try to listen to tomorrow's podcast if you can as well. Listen to yesterday's podcast if you would like. Tons of Michigan stuff. We're trying to not be repetitive. I hope we're succeeding. So if we are succeeding, feel free to rate and review us on iTunes. As you know, that helps us, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate those who have. Few people do it every single day, and we appreciate that. Oh, man. Just a couple of days away. You people probably can't even work right now. You're just, it's your hair is buzzing and your ears are burning, and you might want to get that checked out, honestly.
Sounds like a pretty serious medical condition. Also, if you're working on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I mean, the week is basically over. The week basically ended on Tuesday, so you're almost there.
You've almost made it. So thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out the rest of the shows on the Ozone Radio Network. Mondays, you've got the Sloopcast. Tuesdays, you've got Silver Bullets. Wednesdays, you've got us. Thursdays, you've got Sons of Schmidt. And then Fridays again are the Sloopcast fellas. And we appreciate you listening to this episode of Buckeye Weekly, a week of daily Buckeye Weeklies. I don't know, Tom, if we should ever do this again. Now, maybe next year at this time.
I'm really particularly excited for Thursday's show, in which Buckeye Weekly will be a daily podcast focusing solely on Michigan. So we're really, really getting off-brand tomorrow, but we'll get there. It's fine. Yeah. It's Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Check it out.
You'll be too full of pie and Thanksgiving stuffing to even notice.
You know what? Listen to that show with the family. Turn the TV off. You don't need to watch the NFL.
The what?
Yes. So go ahead and turn this show on with the family while you're eating. I don't know what better ambiance a meal could have. So do that, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks.
She threw away the motel key. I wish We could steal a car and leave.